Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Neil Howard. Thank you so much for returning for another segment of Health Professional Radio. Actor, producer Greg Grunberg has played many roles in movies and TV, but the role closest to his heart is that of father, caregiver, and advocate for people living with epilepsy, including his son, Jake. Well, returning guest Greg joins us now to talk about his involvement in an inspirational online series to raise awareness about the lives of patients and caregivers in the epilepsy community. Welcome back, Greg. How have you been?
I've been great. And Neil, can I thank you for always supporting all of my efforts? I really appreciate it. You have an amazing show, and it's like, this is what I need to do. Like, I can do what I do with my podcast or this new series, but without your help getting the word out, it's not going to go anywhere. And so thank you for that.
We love doing what we do, and thank you for letting us be a part of it. Well, tell our listeners a bit about your latest projects.
Well, I mean, professionally, my latest projects, I've got a new show I'm shooting for HBO Max. That's, you know, it's with J.J. Abrams, my best friend, so it's top secret as always. And I've got a movie, The Fabelmans, is up for an Academy Award, which I'm really excited to have a small role in that. But thank you. But all that stuff, it enables me and allows me the opportunity to do something like this, the Caregiver series. And it's like you talked about in the intro. It's the most near and dear and most personal project that I've been a part of, and it's just a passion project. I'm a caregiver, like you mentioned. You know, our oldest son, Jake, he's an adult, and he's living well with epilepsy. But we've learned over the years that, you know, it takes a toll on the caregivers for anybody that's dealing with any condition, epilepsy or not. And so recognizing these caregivers and giving them a day of care, and also it's a way into the conversation. I've always encouraged people to talk about what they're going through. It lets them know that they're not alone. So at thecaregiverseries.com, you'll see all the episodes that that we've done, and new episodes are going to be released. And what it is I travel around the country and I meet other caregivers. I take them out for their day of care. Like, I played pickleball with caregiver, and she was amazing. I took John, who was a fellow father like myself, and we went to a really cool place that has vintage cars, which is a passion of mine and a passion of his. And it's just a way in where we can connect, have fun, kind of take your mind off of the everyday stuff. But immediately, obviously, we talk about the ones we love. We talk about our situation. And it's a way also for me to give a pat on the back to caregivers, and they need it. We don't want that pat on the back. When my wife and I, when Elizabeth and I hear, you know, people come up to us and they say, "Man, it's amazing how you do." I'm like, no, it's not. We're just parents. We're just doing what we would normally do. We love our kids. So the caregiver is that sort of recognition, and it's a professionally done. This is a series, Neil. This is not like some cheesy little thing like your show. I'm kidding. This is like, no, but we have a real crew, and I've partnered with Jazz Pharmaceuticals, and they've always been patient. You know, they always care about the patients. They always care about the caregivers and the families, and as much as I do. And so when we came together and said, let's do this and let's do it right, that's how the caregiverseries.com was, you know, came about. I keep mentioning the, you know, where to go to find it, but it's called the Caregiver Series, and I think people are going to really enjoy it.
Well, you talked about rejecting the praise, you know, based on the fact that it's your kid, you love your kids. Everybody loves their kids, but talk about some of the other challenges that you and some of the other caregivers of loved ones with epilepsy are facing.
Well, first of all, it's a silent disease, right? It's one of those things that you don't see. You can't see someone on the street and say, "Oh, hey, I noticed that you have epilepsy." You're not in a wheelchair, thank God. You're not, you know, it's not an easily identifiable thing, just visually seeing someone. So when a seizure happens, it's very misunderstood and has been over the years. There's been such a stigma attached to it. People think that, you know, you can catch it. People think that, you know, all these different old wives' tales and things. So the basic information I've been putting out for years at talkaboutit.org, my website, right? And then at the website, you put out information by talking to other people that have the condition or their loved ones have it. So I've had this conversation. I've been having this conversation with fellow doctors and nurses and especially patients or parents kids that have it, spouses or whatever. So it was a natural partnership with Jazz to say, all right, let's film this. Let's actually, talk to these other people that are going through what I'm going through. And there's a shorthand that I have with them. It's so funny. It's like as soon as you meet another caregiver, you're immediately put at ease. You don't have to over-explain it. We understand each other. And if you're watching this right now, you're listening to this right now, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You will enjoy the Caregiver series so much because you're like, finally. We're all out there. There's millions of us. And rare diseases are rare diseases, but they're not that rare, unfortunately. And then you add them all up, and there's a commonality. We're all going through sort of the same thing. We just want the best for our loved ones or ourselves or whatever. So, again, go to thecaregiverseries.com. You'll really enjoy it.
There are many groups and organizations that advocate for folks living with epilepsy. You talked about some of the stigma, some of the misinformation. People think they can catch it, all sorts of other things. But with all of these organizations in place, why is it important for the caregiver to advocate for their loved ones?
Well, I think outside of the obvious, I think it's interesting that you say that because, yes, we have a really strong and robust community, but there are all of these organizations, and there are very few links to all the organizations. And one thing that, ties us all together is obviously the component of the caregiver. Everybody has someone that cares about them, hopefully. And so we never discuss the caregiver. We never really talk to the caregiver. It's sort of assumed that, okay, you're always patient-centric, and patients are part of this as well. It's not like on the Caregiver series, we don't ignore the patients in any way. I'm out there with the family. I'll cook dinner for them. I meet the whole family, but then I'll steal that caregiver away for a few hours. And I'm talking about, Neil, like just even getting a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
Like sometimes caregivers don't have the time for themselves just to say, okay, what do I want? Do I want a decaf? Do I want a latte? Honestly, we've had these conversations, and it is, again, this is something that I'm hoping ties the whole community together, brings us all together. It's certainly something that we can all relate to. Again, you do not even have to have any kind of a condition in your family to enjoy this series. You'll understand it. We all are caregivers. We all have people that we care about and love. Neil, I love you. Let's just put it. I just want to say it right.
Well, I'm glad that you do.
You know what I mean? It's like, but you know what I mean? Everybody's got somebody that they care about, and you need to be recognized for the things you're doing. And the one message, the first message is you're doing a great job. If you're watching this, if you're listening to this right now, you're doing a great job, and it's okay to accept that, to hear it, and to, have open dialogue with other caregivers. And one way to do that is to start by watching a series like that, listening to a podcast, going to your local Epilepsy Foundation or whatever, condition you're dealing with. Engage in conversation because you're not alone. And this is what I'm doing this morning is talking to all these wonderful people like yourself. Thank you, again, so much for having me on and keeping this dialogue going.
Absolutely. What's the final takeaway, the one important thing that you'd like our audience to remember about this topic and about the series as well?
That you're not alone. As caregivers, we often feel like we're the only ones going through this and dealing with it, and no one understands us, and that may be true in your very, very specific situation, but you'd be surprised. Don't be afraid to talk about it. Don't be afraid to go to thecaregiverseries.com. Go to thecaregiverseries.com. Watch the Caregiver series. You'll enjoy it. And trust me, it'll make you feel like, okay, I'm part of a wonderful group, and I have support out there.
And even though it's focused on the epilepsy community, the caregiver is the caregiver no matter whom they're giving care to or why. They all have the same thing in common.
You're right.
Greg, always a pleasure. I'm looking forward to you coming back and telling us more about this series, how it progresses, more of your story, and the things that you find out on your journey, okay?
I would love it. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
You've been listening to Health Professional Radio. I'm your host, Neil Howard, in conversation with Greg Grunberg. Audio copies of this program are available at hpr.fm and healthprofessionalradio.com.au. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com, Health Professional Radio.